any specific trends of Gen Z students that SDA has had to adjust to?
They want meaning, they want a work-life balance, want emotional well-being. There is no way that we can resort to passive lectures.
What is it that the B School panelist is looking for in terms of qualities?
It's not like a general knowledge quiz. We don't really test students on trivia, as how many centuries has Virat Kohli scored.
What is the most interesting answer that you have found to the question, tell me something about yourself?
Let me think.
Hi, welcome to this special session. My name is Debrup Podar, and on behalf of Team IMS, it's a pleasure to be here at the wonderful campus of SDA Bocconi Asia Center. Today, I'm in a special conversation with Professor Dr. Seema Khanvilkar. She's a PhD in management in the area of communications and has been teaching the mechanics of the language for more than 2 decades. Currently, she's a professor of business communications at SDA Bocconi Asia Center. It's a pleasure to speak to you today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I would love for the viewers to know a little bit more about yourself.
Yes, I have been teaching communication for over 2 decades now, both to students in the master's program and also to corporate executives. So if at the risk of sounding immodest, I will say this, that I think I've nudged thousands on the path of professional and personal development. And this is my forte. I train students and executives in executive presence, in cross-cultural sensitivity, storytelling, presentations, leveraging the power of non-verbals. These are this is my domain expertise.
So many of the profound qualities that you mentioned right now are also tested as part of the selection process for the MBA aspirants.
For sure.
Now with the CAT and the other entrance exam results being out, MBA aspirants are gearing up for the interview season.
Yes.
Right now, with so many different selection processes, one thing that remains constant is the need for communication, is the need for proper soft skills to be displayed during interviews.
Sure.
Let me start off by asking you this interesting question. What is the most interesting answer that you have found to the question, tell me something about yourself?
Let me think. Yes, from what I can recall, and this remains distinct in memory, is there was a candidate, instead of giving the regular run-of-the-mill answers about their achievements and their roles and their responsibilities, what he did was he kind of divided his journey into 3 chapters. And the chapters were curiosity, failure, and growth. And he told us of how his values were shaped during those 3 phases of his life, how it affected his thought process, his credo in life. And I thought that was so wonderful because it wasn't a rehearsed answer. It was and I liked the answer not just for the creativity bit, but just because it was so authentic. It came straight from the heart. And he had no qualms about sharing his failure with us. But I think what was most important was his positive attitude. Because he said, okay, yes, I failed, but there were so many lessons that I learned from that, and how it contributed a great deal to his growth. So that I think I really liked. Also because it was, like I said, authentic, straight from the heart. And that's what we're really looking for, right? I'm looking for a candidate. I want to get to know them better. I want to know their thought process. I also want to know what motivates them, what gets them going. So that's one response that kind of still stands out after so much of time.
That's wonderful. Interesting concept to break something into chapters like a storybook.
Yeah, like a storybook.
Correct.
And it was creative, yes, but it was authentic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You've been on the panel that judges candidates as part of the MBA selection process. What is your advice in terms of, or rather, I should ask you, what is it that the B School panelist is looking for in terms of qualities in the candidates?
Okay, I think the first that comes to mind is a clarity of purpose. I mean, it's clarity
Okay.
as to why do you want to do an MBA? Because let's face it, you are investing a great deal in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of an opportunity cost. So you need to be clear about why is it that you want to do an MBA. So I think clarity would come first. Second, I think would be self-awareness, because particularly I'm a soft skills person, so I would want the candidate to be reflective, to understand themselves, to understand what gets them going, what motivates them, what are their chief strengths, what perhaps is their fatal flaw. Just understand themselves a great deal better, because for soft skills, that self-awareness is the key. And then, of course, authenticity. Because, today you have, you have rehearsed pat answers to everything. And so, an original voice, an authentic voice. So, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for, and I'm sure the other panelists, I can perhaps speak for them as well. Perhaps, yes, an authentic voice, realness, if I may, put it down to that. And yes, the other things, of course, like I mentioned, you need to have general awareness levels. It's not like a general knowledge quiz. I mean, we don't really test students on trivia as to, how many centuries has Virat Kohli scored, not taking away, of course, anything from him. But you need to know, you need to be generally aware of what is happening around you in the world, because you cannot separate business from life, you see. So what's happening around you, what's happening in your country, what is happening in the world, certain opinions on geopolitics, all these are very important. Like, I'll give you one example. Say if a student comes from maybe West Bengal, I'd like him to be aware of West Bengal. I'd like him to have, generalities, as you say, what is perhaps the population, maybe who's the governor, what are the ills that afflict West Bengal, what works for West Bengal. I'd want him to know, because if you've spent those many years of your life there, I'd want to know more information about that. And I think these are the areas that we can, that the interviewer wants to know, and you can actually lead the panel into where you want them to go.
Sure.
Because I always believe that this, the responses to this question of tell me something about yourself, essentially is you get the opportunity to craft your own narrative. And if you want to be distinct, yes, of course, you have to tell us about your roles and your responsibilities and your professional achievements. But I'd say be clear.
And sometimes it's a great opportunity to go beyond what you've just written in your
Sure,
application and
yes.
tell something
Because
different.
I just don't want someone to read out his, their resume to
Correct.
me. I want you to go beyond, your resume. And, if you have any special interests, if you have, of course, any special achievements, that is a given, of course. But if there's something interesting that you do, those are all the, I focus more on the soft skills, as I'm sure, as we've discussed. So, yeah. So these are the things. So clarity, to put it succinctly, clarity, self-awareness, and authenticity.
Got it.
Yeah.
You have been in the space of communications for more than 2 decades.
Yes.
In your rich experience, what would you say is the major shift in student behavior or their soft skills as the years have gone by?
Yes. Students today are definitely more tech savvy. They are more aware, for sure, because with all the information at their disposal, I know that they know a lot. They might not know a lot about everything in depth, but for sure the breadth is there. Yes, and that's a shift that I find from the earlier lot. They're also very vocal. They're open to questioning. Yes, and they don't like passive lectures. They want interactive sessions. They want experiential learning. And yes, one thing I will say that they're also more anxious about their careers and their performance. That's one thing there. And of course, the most obvious thing is that short attention spans. And I always joke in class, that these days we have the attention span of a fruit fly. So that, yes. And that is, I think, a prevalent problem. Short attention spans. Symptomatic of the times that we are living in, I guess.
Anything specific that is happening at SDA Bocconi that is helping address these changes? Anything particular
Yeah.
that you're doing in your classrooms?
We focus a lot on interpersonal connection. because the times that we are living in, it does tend to lead to a, if I may say so, a fair amount of isolation. So interpersonal connectedness is something that we emphasize on. Building resilience, I think, which is very important, because I spoke about anxiety levels regarding performance and careers. So emotional resilience, emotional maturity. And we offer, our courses have technology embedded in them. We have counseling and mentoring sessions, because I know that this particular generation looks for interaction and personalization and integration, digital integration into the courses. Yes.
Any specific trends of Gen Z students that
Oh,
SDA
yeah.
has had to adjust to?
Yeah, because the Gen Zs, as I'm sure you're aware, they're very purpose driven. Yes, they want meaning, they want a work life balance, they want emotional well being. So there is no way that we can resort to passive lectures. So they want an interactive experiential outcome. They want digital integration in their courses. That's something that that we provide for them. And we have, obviously, we have simulations, we have case-based learning, and this is our way of being abreast with them, keeping abreast with them. And also, of course, we provide counseling and mentoring as well to our students, because this interconnectedness, I think, is very important, specifically for the Gen Zs. Yes.
Today, we are also in a world where the use of AI is ever increasing.
Yes.
What are the skill sets, maybe technological as well as soft skills wise, that the MBA aspirant must possess to not just clear the interviews, but maybe even succeed in their careers?
Yes, what I firmly believe is that this is a battle that cannot be fought. All right. You might as well accept it that people will resort to AI. But the thing is that even if you, you ask a certain query and you get a response, you have to have enough sufficient background information to ask the right questions, because everybody has access to the same tools. So I think the most important skill would be the sense of discernment, to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's one thing, because and sometimes I think AI can be very lazy. Sometimes it gives you responses which are just meet the minimum threshold of accuracy. So to be able to discern that, you should know something about it, right? You can't just blindly accept whatever the AI throws at you. And also, it is very important to find your distinct voice, because, like I said, everybody has access to the same tools. So how are you going to find your original, authentic voice in the midst of all the clutter? So yes, there's one skill that's really important. I would say it is the sense of discernment, the ability. And for that, you must have sufficient background knowledge to ask the right questions, for the right prompts. Yes.
Very well said. And in the context of the same thing,
Yes.
What innovative teaching methodologies have you or the other professors at SDA Bocconi employed in their classrooms?
Yes, we of course have, like I mentioned, the case-based learning. We have simulations, and a lot of our faculty members, in fact, most of them come from Italy. And the interesting thing is that a lot of them are associated with the industry. So, which means that they bring in with them a rich body of experience, and they also teach in different geographical locations around the world. So it's a different perspective and a different worldview that they bring into the classroom. And then, of course, we have classes by lectures, by guest lectures, by industry experts, which I think is a major differentiator. So people, our students listen to these guest lectures. They get on the ground information. So these are things that we do, and like I said, ours is a blend. Of very, very interactive classroom discussions, with technology-enabled, modules. So this is what we do to ensure that the students are provided with a very holistic experience. And we don't want to teach the students just concepts. Yes, concepts do form the bedrock of the courses. But what is more important is that we teach them to, I don't know, we teach them to be thinking managers who can navigate the complexities in the global scenario.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's lovely to know about the teaching methodologies. A common question that aspirants have, What makes the SDA Bocconi program so special?
So apart from the wonderful learning experience that we provide for our students, it would have to be the 4-month immersion experience in Milan. Our students travel there, they work with people from different cultures from all across Europe. They travel a great deal. A lot of them come from, I mean, we are very proud of the diversity. We have students from different parts of the country. And for them to interact with people of a different culture, to work with people of a different culture, to work on assignments, to work on projects, to deal with interpersonal conflicts, because culture can be a minefield sometimes, when you deal with people of different cultures. That I think is the biggest learning experience that our students have. And most of them come back, in fact, all of them come back completely transformed. Because it's a different worldview and there's so much of exposure. And it just adds, I think it adds a completely different dimension to their personality when they come back. So yes, the Milan experience would definitely be it.
It sounds wonderful. You're
Yes.
making me want to go to Milan
yes,
after
you must.
what you said.
Yes.
Are there any scholarships for deserving students?
Yes, we have, there are two kinds. We have a tuition waiver as well, depending of course on the, on the candidature. I mean, if it's a spectacular CV and, if the candidate shows exceptional prowess, we have an 80% tuition waiver. Then the next slab is about a 50% tuition waiver. And the next is a 30% tuition waiver. Right? Of course, the candidates are, judged on different matrices. Most of all come through the personal interview. Also, the CV that they have, exceptional work experience, etc. The particular role that they've held, the position that they have been in. Then we have scholarships as well. We have women in leadership. So, especially for deserving women candidates who have held positions of responsibility, and how have they performed there, the impact that they have made. So, we have scholarship for that category as well. Then we have a Dean's Award, which is usually announced at the end of the first year. So, then your second year fees, there's a reduction in the second year fees thanks to the Dean's Award. And then we also have special, scholarship, which is for perhaps, if you've excelled in sports, or if you've excelled in some culturally somewhere, you've represented the state, the nation, if you have a startup and you've managed to hold on to it and it's managed to generate some revenue, and that's something that we're very happy to do. So provide a special scholarship for that. So yes, the tuition waiver and the scholarships. Yes, these are the three categories of scholarships that we have.
Ma'am, what is the selection process at SDA Bocconi, and what can the aspirants do to prepare themselves for the interviews?
Okay, so we have, of course, we look at the test scores, CAT, GMAT, NMAT, the Bocconi test, the GRE. We also look at their academics, work experience, any special extracurriculars, essays, and then of course we have the personal interviews. Now, in a personal interview, what I'm really looking for is, I'm looking for leadership potential. I am looking for communication, needless to say. I'm looking for a certain presence. I am looking for the ability to articulate their thoughts coherently in a very structured manner. I am also, and I'm also looking to see how comfortable they are talking about themselves, particularly that first question, tell me something about yourselves. In my experience, candidates find it very easy to talk about their experience, their work experience, their professional role, etc. But they're a tad uncomfortable when it comes to talking about themselves, So that's something that I'm always looking for, how comfortable they are about talking about themselves. So that's one thing, yes. And we don't really look for, general knowledge to test their GK, etc., to, find out how many centuries has, Virat Kohli scored in Test cricket, not to take away anything from him, and other bits of, trivial information in that sense. But yes, we are looking for awareness in general, about society, about the world, about the country that you live in, about the place that you come from. For instance, if you come from a particular state in the country, I would want to know some more information, and I think that candidates must be aware of that. That's general awareness. What is maybe could be something as basic as who's the governor of the particular state, or what is the population, or what is the state mainly known for, or if there is any problem in that particular state, what is the what do you think are the chief problems that exist in that state, and what is your opinion on that? What, not your solution, that sounds very lofty, but you should have an opinion and you should be aware of what's happening around the, because we cannot keep business separate from society and the world. So that's very, very important. But yes, if I were to put it very succinctly, leadership potential, communication, presence, values, ethics, these are also very, very important, because you go out as managers. You have a responsibility to society in general. So that's what we're looking for. And mainly is clarity of purpose, career clarity. What do you want to do once you have the MBA in your bag? And why are you specifically doing an MBA? It would help if they went through the offerings by the school, what subjects they would like to choose. Not that, I mean, it might be a little premature, but at least to have some sort of an idea as to what is it that they would like to do. Career clarity, self-awareness, as I mentioned. And yes, these are the things that we really look for. And so be honest, be authentic, have clarity, and yes, general awareness, which is of course very important, because you don't want to come across as someone who does not know much. And I think in this information age, there really is no reason for them not to know much. You have even your newspapers. I really don't know how many of my students read newspaper articles in depth. There is always in shots for that. So there is something that you need to be abreast of what's happening around you. Yes, so for sure. So these are the things for.
Fantastic.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you. You've given us a lot of insight, not just into SDA Bocconi, but also the importance of communication, the importance of words, as it always has been, and especially so in the case of the interview process, the selection process here at SDA Bocconi. It's really been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. On behalf of Team IMS, I thank Professor Seema once again for her words of wisdom and the insider information of the SDA Bocconi program. Definitely, I feel like going to Milan after what she has said. But to all the MBA aspirants out there of SDA Bocconi, as well as general MBA aspirant group, these are some of the tips and tricks that you must hold on to, as advised by Professor Seema. Thank you once again for speaking to us.
My pleasure.
And take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.